Hello there, back again on my Good Enough Mum page to talk today about guilt and how we can respond when we're feeling guilty about our parenting. So the reason I'm sort of tackling this rather difficult and uncomfortable subject is I was reading on one of the Facebook groups that I belong to a post on Saturday night about someone who said, is it just me or do you feel guilty as well when you put your little one to bed and you look back over the day's events? And quite a lot of people came on and said, no, it's not just you, it's me as well. And it really struck me how guilty many of us feel, and certainly that was something that I can identify with as well, and certainly could when my children were little. And alongside that, I'm also doing some studying on something called compassion-focused therapy. So I spent the weekend watching a lot of YouTube videos and reading up about it as I'm presenting a seminar this coming weekend to another group of counsellors. So the subject of guilt is really quite high in my mind at the moment. And also just even thinking about it, how it opened up my memories of feeling guilt and the things that I look back on and don't feel particularly happy about in my parenting. So how do we handle these feelings? It's a really difficult thing to deal with, and it's very upsetting to actually feel guilty about what we've been doing as parents. I think the first thing to say is it's really important to differentiate between shame and guilt. And a lot of the psychologists are very careful to make a difference between shame and guilt. And shame would be that sort of overriding feeling of being a bad person, of feeling sort of rejected by people because we're a bad person. And it can often be very focused on our own feelings of shame, and quite often we can end up sort of blaming someone else for what's happened because it's very difficult to admit to ourselves what we've felt, and we become sort of quite craven in our apologies and try and make amends. Whereas guilt, we can differentiate between it, because in guilt we're not saying that because we've done something wrong that we're a bad person, and we're able to say, I'm an okay person but I did something that I'm not proud of. And we focus more sort of on the outward effect of what's happened, and we think about the effect that it's had on the person. And what it does is it elicits within us that sort of sense of sympathy and empathy for the other person. And I thought that's sort of really interesting, because what happened with the mums who were talking on this Facebook group about their guilt is quite a few of them said, you know, I'll maybe go up to the child's bedroom and stroke their forehead and sort of almost make the intention that tomorrow is going to be a better day, and maybe pick up their child and kiss them and say sorry, because that's recognising that perhaps we've done something wrong and we don't want that to affect that particular person. And in that sense, I think guilt is a useful emotion to feel, and that's really what came up for me when I was studying the compassion-focused therapy. Because what we can do when we are feeling guilty is, if we allow ourselves to recognise that we've made a mistake and that we don't want to make the same mistake again, we can actually look at the situation, we can look at what's happened, we can maybe think about what's making us do that particular action and try and change it. Sometimes that can involve, you might need some help, you might need to talk to somebody about it, somebody who can really understand, and perhaps someone who can offer you support in that. And I just want to share that for me, a really big thing came up from when one of my children was really tiny, and I felt yesterday as though I was trying to drive a car and I couldn't get the car into gear. It was like I was trying to put the car into gear, and the gears were grinding. You know, when you just cannot get that gear stick to be in the right place, and it sort of felt like that for me. And then later on in the day, I talked to a friend who was really understanding, and I sort of described the situation that I'd been through, and she was so kind to me and so compassionate, and it enabled me to really let go of that guilt, to grieve to sort of think I'm very sad that this has happened, and sort of grieve for the person and grieve for what happened to them as a result of my actions. And that sort of enabled me to feel as though I'd put my car into gear. I was sort of finally able to sort of slot the gear stick into place. And that was the ability to be able really to feel the sadness of what I was feeling, and that just enabled me to move to a different place. And so it's really helpful to be able to talk to somebody who's compassionate. And this is, again, where the compassion-focused therapy comes in. Because with compassion-focused therapy, what we're doing is we're looking at ourselves and we're recognising, like I said on the feed last week, that we've got a tricky brain. Our brains are designed to respond to threat, and that overrides everything else. And so sometimes that can cause us to do the wrong thing, to lash out. But compassion allows us a moment to actually consider what we're doing, and we can set our intentions up to do something different. But it also recognises that we've got a tricky brain. Sometimes we do things that isn't for the best. And we do make mistakes, and sometimes we do have things that we do wrong, and we need to try and put those right and make amends. But that is part of the human condition. And sometimes we find ourselves in situations which are very difficult, and that's not through our choice, that's just what's happened. And to be kind to ourselves in that situation, and that's bringing out the compassionate side of looking after ourselves. And so in dealing with guilt, I think it's important to recognise that it's there. It's important to understand why it's there. It's important to allow ourselves to grieve. And then it's important to set the intention to do better and to see if we can make amends. And recognise that we are only human. And to look after ourselves in this, to be kind to ourselves. I hope that's helpful to you. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can contact me via the Facebook page. And I am doing some discovery calls as well. So if you'd like to have a chat with me to find out how I can help you, or if you've got a particular problem you want to talk about, I offer a half-hour conversation either over the internet, via Skype or by phone, or via Facebook Messenger if you'd like that. And we can have a conversation about what's troubling you and see if there's any further ways that I can help you. So the link to my scheduler is at the top of the Good Enough Mum page. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with me, I'd be very happy to talk to you. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.